Hey guys, what's going on? Paul here and welcome back to another Cardano video. If you're new, make sure you hit the subscribe and the notification bell so that you never miss an update. Today's video is a chat with DC from Liqwid Finance. So I did have DC on before to introduce Liqwid Finance. They are going to be one of the first DeFi projects built completely on Cardano. So I catch up with him today to see how things have been going, where they are in terms of progress, as well as how he's finding building on Cardano and Plutus right now, as well as looking forward to the Alonzo launch, when things are going to happen. So I will put some timestamps down below. Please do give the video a like, share it out there to get this information out there, as well as leave your comments down below, and let's jump into it. Okay, today we have DC back on the channel. It's great to be able to catch up with DC and see what's going on with Liqwid. DC, thanks very much for coming back on again.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on again, Paul. I appreciate it. It's been only a couple months, but it feels like it's been so long, huh? That's how things are heating up. Yeah.
Things are finally starting to move really quickly for Cardano, which is great to see.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we did do an interview before, and I will put a link to that down below along with the website and everything for Liqwid and your social profiles for guys to follow you. But give the elevator pitch of what Liqwid is, and then we'll kind of move on to what's going on with you guys right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So Liqwid is an open source liquidity protocol for lending. We're trying to facilitate, more efficient interest rate curves for suppliers to earn interest, for borrowers to open loans at, competitive interest rates. Essentially, an Aave or a compound in the UTXO Plutus model built on Cardano, and gaining all of the efficiencies, all the security guarantees, the resource determinism that we get from, building on this extended UTXO model. So yeah, right now we're in the phase of launching and rolling out the first testnet version of the protocol, the Plutus set of contracts that we've been working on for the last month and a half or so with the M Labs team. This is definitely going to be an early alpha version of the protocol, and is going to be an iterative release cycle to kind of get us closer to the Plutus, mainnet launch. But this is, something that we definitely feel really confident in, and we're trying to get the community as engaged in the protocol as early as we can.
Yeah, I'd say it's great for you guys to get the timeline as well, I suppose, for Alonzo, so you can actually start putting, I know we don't have hard dates on it, but we have rough ideas of when it's going to come. So I presume you will be some of the first ones into the testnet to try and see how things are going and see if your contracts all work. So everything you build on the testnet and everything like that, from what I've seen, they can still go live. Basically, day one, we have Alonzo. Anything done on testnet can go live.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, and I'm saying, fingers crossed, we actually are able to get, our development partners and labs into this group of, Haskellers testing the Plutus private, testnet version essentially, and going through what that, updated Ledger API, the Plutus application backend, what that, close to production version of it really looks like. It's going to, de-risk a lot of what IOHK is trying to do with this Plutus rollout. And we have a very senior team of Haskell devs, both with a lot of Stack Overflow rep in the Haskell community and template Haskell experience, and the ability to just really do a lot for testing out and kind of validating a lot of the Plutus model before they actually put it in production. We made it clear to IOHK, like, that's a real win for you guys. That is really kind of adjacent to what we're doing with Liqwid and our team. But yeah, there's definitely a secondary win for us, right? We're going to have so much domain knowledge of like what the best practice, what the near production state of Plutus actually looks and feels like, what these emulators and test cases can do in the mainnet ready version of Plutus, and then being able to build Liqwid on the backs of that will streamline a lot of the development activities that we're doing right now, and kind of the let's say 80 to 90% built state of Plutus.
It should be a win-win really. You guys are going to be testing what some of the real world use cases are and testing contracts that will hopefully go live. I don't know what your own timelines are like, or where are you in terms of launching, say, if we did get Alonzo the beginning of August or even into mid-August, where would that leave Liqwid Finance and launching then?
Yeah, so the whole goal is to try to launch at the same time as this Alonzo hard fork. As we get Plutus, in production, we want to have the Liqwid V1 system launched. And, to do that, there's a lot that we need to de-risk, from now until the, end of July, start of August. And
Yeah.
a full protocol security audit needs to be done. And we've talked to, Well-Typed and Twig and some of these Haskell specific development firms who could probably engage with us on that. And we plan to lock that up in the next couple of weeks or so. As we release the first version of this testnet app, we'd like to, by that same timeline, have, some, understanding of who exactly is going to do the security audit, when that will happen in terms of the next few months of rollout, because that really is the last thing that needs to be completed before we can, fully launch this system into production. But yeah, we are definitely aiming to be directly on pace with this whole, Alonzo, or as I, the king, calls it, Alfonso rollout. So yeah, we're and I think we're on pace with that. The Haskell devs have really delivered. They've been heads down, and we have 2 more joining us basically this week, this early April. So we're really excited about them being able to, one, keep up with the pace of Plutus and the contracts that we're working on, and also potentially get into this, Plutus Pioneer program, which would really be a huge boost for M Labs and Plutus, but also for what we're doing with Liqwid.
Yeah, I suppose the security aspect of it is going to be huge as well, and having the audits out there when you're dealing with something like you guys are, like I suppose it's real decentralized finance, and there will be a lot on the line. So it's like Alonzo, there's no point pushing it out the door before it's 100% ready, even if it's not the same day as Alonzo or something like that. It's always better to be 100% yourselves to be sure that what you're putting out is right.
Yeah, and we talked about this, Paul. It's like you get one shot at these things, and we're planning to build so much on top of Liqwid, post just getting these, liquidity pools essentially on chain. There's so many secondary product offerings. We think about credit, identity, insurance, just what you get out of the base stack of Cardano with Atala Prism and some of these other things, but also what you can build on top of that with this UTXO model and some of the global state guarantees that you'll get when you can, really build specific insurance products and things like that on top of it. Like, for instance, would you rather 175% APY for normal yield farm, or would you rather 150% APY that's insurance backed for your yield farming, right? So right. And there's the opportunity to build these things in a way that's radically different than the Ethereum accounts-based model. And it actually has a lot more kind of guarantees in terms of assurances, security guarantees, execution, the way you can simulate these contracts before you actually, power them with your ADA funds on chain and lock the UTXO in the script is actually things that you just don't get really with Ethereum unless you're like a developer building it, right? These are all of the benefits of building on Plutus and the UTXO model, and we understand that we get one shot to launch this thing in production and one shot to really get this right. So yeah, we're definitely going to continue at the pace that we're on. I know that sometimes it doesn't seem like this is as sexy as like the NFT, which is all the rage these days, and that's okay. I think that the confidence that we have now is really derived from the fact our team is really committed. They're passionate about Haskell. They're passionate about getting Plutus to a place where normal Haskell devs will just be able to pick it up off the shelf and run with it, whether it's, DeFi, NFTs, like I mentioned, something totally different, gaming, maybe, who knows, right? So I definitely think that having that combination of just, Haskell experience, our, financial analysts and DeFi experience on our Liqwid Labs team, we've really built a really good connection with these devs, and they're here for as long, V1 and beyond, to really work with us and, get this protocol where it needs to be and really get Plutus where it needs to be. So yeah, it's a win-win for Cardano. It's a win for Liqwid all around. It's something that, we're just really grateful to have on our team.
How are you guys finding, I suppose, developing on Cardano and Plutus right now as compared to, obviously, if you went with Ethereum, you'll be able to push out a lot quicker, but it would be a different product. Then you couldn't do everything you're going to do with Cardano. But there's probably some roadblocks right now with everything not fully ready. But how are you finding the development on Cardano anyway?
Yeah, so you're right. If we were just another, DeFi team, we would have launched our yield farming contracts on Binance Smart Chain or, whatever, one of these other Ethereum-like layer 2 chains. But we didn't do that, right? We just said that and I wrote an open letter to the community kind of explaining this in detail about halfway through our Fund 2 Catalyst experience. And it was a really real moment because our devs were, essentially had a yield farming contract that we were wanted to deploy on the KEVM, built a wallet solution, had our Oracle mechanism to get the price of ADA, like all these things that you'd probably just get out of the box if you were launching on Binance Smart Chain. We, built ourselves to kind of be able to launch this yield farming mechanism, whatever, 3-4 months before Plutus was set to launch at that time, right? And turns out the KVM is just not in a state, at least then, that you could actually do something like this on. And it was a call that we made to say, hey, we're going to just take, a piece of this and, learn from the design patterns, learn from everything that these Ethereum DeFi protocols have done in terms of how they handle cash flows, how the accounting series, the double entry accounting that these ledgers are essentially doing, these different contracts, how that works in terms of the linear step and the workflow. And then take that into the UTXO model and not even, bother continuing down this KEVM path. And I think that what that meant for us was, find the best team of Haskell developers that, you can, the most passionate guys and girls that you can work with at this point, and get them all together and get them focused on building, Liqwid in the Plutus version. And that's essentially what we've done since, I would say the last 2 months. And they've been, heads down at this process. A couple of them have gotten PRs in already to the Plutus, main branches for things like the demo scripts and things like that that need just general updating that Haskell devs are now all eyes on, working on and looking at. And we're excited because, they really do have, the skill and the ability and the real desire to kind of work with IOHK very closely on this. Like, this isn't something we're building in a black box by any means. Like, this is like, something that we're working very, very close with those IOHK Plutus compiler devs. Everyone in that IOHK DevNet Slack is probably getting annoyed by the amount of questions our devs are just, pinging them with in the Plutus channel, because, there's so many different things when you talk about the state of Plutus right now, where you do need the understanding of IOHK's devs who built the protocol to say, hey, what part of the Plutus application backend can I, use to do this testing, even though it might change in the future? Or, how do I get this, certain build version to work with the master Plutus version right now? What do I do with this incomplete ledger API? All these different questions that you have around, the validator scripts or their own beast in Plutus and what that all means. It's like all these things that our devs are, kind of hacking at and really getting like the domain, understanding directly from the IOHK devs who built it. It's all coming from like really kind of, I would say like, just like very straightforward communication lines. Like, there's a Slack that IOHK set up where basically all of their Plutus devs are in that Slack. And like I said, they're fielding questions from us, pretty much 24/7 on all things Plutus, native tokens, assets. And some of our questions get answered. Some of them don't, some of them make them into the weekly DevNet call. And some of them there's just no clear answer for until you reach out to, higher parties. But the point is that resource is there and it exists, and it's actually streamlined a lot of what we're doing on the Plutus side to this point. But yeah, it's a definitely continuous improvement process. It's definitely an iterative process. It's going to continue all the way through the Plutus launch, I would imagine.
It's great to have that support, have that interaction. I think it is needed at this stage, because when they're helping you, it's streamlining it for future projects as well. So when projects are building, hopefully this time next year, that whole process will be a lot more streamlined. So what you're going through now, both IOHK are going to learn from, I suppose, trial and error in some senses, and there will be a more defined process for projects to come later. I still see it that projects that are getting out there first on Cardano they will have more work to get there first, but it gives a lot of big advantages as well. Like, being first to market on a platform like Cardano could be huge for any project, really.
Agreed. But I also certainly agree with the point that you just made, Paul. It's going to be like, just think of like the design patterns that, we're going to kind of construct with Liqwid for like the first, liquidity solution for lending. And then think about, the design pattern that they introduced with this Uniswap DEX on Plutus, right? So whoever's coming after and building on top of this, or building competitions to these solutions, which I actually welcome. I think we need 100 Liquids and 100 Uniswaps on Cardano, to really test out. This is so massively underexplored, right? This design space of UTXO smart contracts. And I talked to people like Emergo, the CTO there, Nico, and, they really explore these things a lot with their partnership with Ergo. They really looked at the full, space of what you can actually do with the UTXO model. Like, Ergo has done a lot of really interesting things, but I think, by far, at least to me, the most interesting is the data inputs, the read-only UTXO, that they've basically implemented for Ergo that allows them to do these Oracle pools where they're basically pulling price feed data off from a number of different validators who are pooling it in this UTXO that just constantly gets updated without having to actually spend into it, since it's like this, read-only UTXO essentially. It's a kind of interesting concept. Cardano's not going to have that from day one, so there's redeemer values and things that are a little different in Cardano, and you have to kind of, make your system work around the set of constraints that Cardano has. But that's not to say it can't be updated. That's not to say these things can't be changed in the future, or that we won't have, an equivalent, method to do the same exact thing at probably, equivalent level of cost and security guarantees as well. But I'm just saying the UTXO design space right now is just so immature in its current state. And it's because, like, when you think about it, Ergo, and maybe I don't even know of any other UTXO blockchain that does smart contracts, but like, essentially Cardano is going to be the first one that's doing this at scale with the market cap, over, $20 billion, right? And really like getting after it in terms of the user base that's instantly going to be using these dApps. So yeah, I definitely think teams coming after are going to have a lot easier path. The design patterns, what worked, what didn't, those things will all be scoped out and sorted. They'll have a complete understanding of what needs to all run on chain, what needs to, what can be, off chain, what's the actual flow of these contracts, what needs to be exactly linear, all these different things that we're in many ways doing in a very, structured, simple way, and starting off with the most simple structure and building out from there in terms of like how we're setting up our contracts and the actual data logic within them. But yeah, the teams that are going to come after us are going to be able to see and inspect all of these things, just like case studies, just like we did with Aave and Compound. I've been a student of the game for, I would say, a couple of years now, since entering in 2017. And I think that I've seen, what's, gone up in flames on Ethereum, DeFi, and what's actually really worked and managed to, accrue value and capture fees and things like that. So I think that it's all about being a student of the game, seeing the design patterns. I've been lucky because I can understand how you translate some of these Solidity, Ethereum, EVM design patterns into a UTXO world and model that actually can make sense and have, sensible logic and just be way more efficient in their operation essentially. But yeah, you look at what's happening now already. Aave is moving to Matic, right? Like all of these, 1inch is moving to Binance Smart Chain. I already did, right? So all of these like kind of, heavyweight players in Ethereum DeFi are moving to chains that actually scale away from Ethereum. So yeah, we're saying, that's cool and all. You guys are all moving to EVM chains, but like, how about doing this on like what we think is going to be clearly the fastest horse in the crypto race? Cardano is clearly built on a granite foundation. Why wouldn't you just build it in this UTXO model once, launch it, get it right, and then, update from there?
In a year's time, what's to say that some of them aren't moving towards Cardano then at that stage? It's at the minute, Cardano is breaking ground. I know Ergo have done some of this, but at this scale, Cardano and smart contracts, the way they're doing it, is breaking new ground. And look, competition is always going to keep everyone innovating all the time. Like as you guys see new projects coming in, doing similar to what you're doing, they'll be learning from you, but it also keeps pushing you guys to get better and better with your offerings as well. And so competition is always good in this space. Like you look around at all the smart contract platforms that are out there, like if everyone settled with Ethereum that is the only way you can do something, then it's never going to be what's possible in the space. Like you look at Cardano, Algo, Zil, there's so many out there that are all competition. I think all will find a space out there, but with what Cardano are doing, there is massive potential.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think you said it, and I come from like a sports background. So like I'm all about competition and like pushing, you realize at some point the real competition has always been yourself and, your team and what you guys manage to produce, and everything else is really noise, even what you consider and deem competition. But this is a great point because you're right. In this crypto world and verse, like for thinking of like the user, thinking from like a user's perspective, you want to have a diverse optionality, right? You want to have 10 different, very functional, liquid, robust money markets on chain. You want to have the same number for DEXs, the same number for things like, asset management solutions, robo-advisors, you name it. You can have all those things and still have a very, successful protocol like Liqwid that has billions of dollars locked in it, securely operating, money markets on chain. That Cardano, this is not a zero-sum game by any means, right? And you said something else, the design space of just even layer one blockchains that do smart contracts. There's so many more than just Ethereum, and the fact that most of the ETH bros and some of the kind of early ETH VCs essentially are so locked in the world of Ethereum only. They're starting to come out of it now that they see the performance of things like Polkadot.
And just what you said
Cardano.
on zero-sum game, like there's too much out there looking at it as a zero-sum game that if Ethereum succeeds, it means that Cardano and everything else fails, or if Cardano succeeds, it means everything else fails. But it doesn't. This space, to me, is only getting bigger and bigger, and where we are now, it's tiny, the space, the smart contract space in general. Like where we're going in the future, there is going to be enough out there, enough market share for multiple liquids, multiple different blockchains doing smart contracts, and each will, I think, find their own niche as well out there. Like there's no one chain. Ethereum has dominated, and it was the best one up until, I suppose, the last 12 months really. But they will all diversify into their own sections. But
sorry, just last point. When you look at what's actually happening in DeFi with the aggregators, it's like you're not even going to just be using, like, realistically, you'll be using like an aggregator solution that's going to, get liquidity from a bunch of DEXs, from a bunch of lending solutions, so it's not even going to be, unless you're a true power user or an early user, like, the first 12 or so months on Cardano, dApps, you probably won't even have to directly engage with one of these protocols. But I agree. There needs to be a diverse selection. There needs to be many. They all need to be audited and tested. We have to get that sector of DeFi launched on Cardano really as soon as Plutus launches, for this thing to start competing like toe-to-toe against Ethereum. But I agree. So the design space is massively underexplored for even layer one smart contract blockchain. So to think that Ethereum was going to be the end-all be-all was, to me, like the biggest fairy tale of this market. And I'm telling you, it's just, at this point, it's just information arbitrage. Like, it's like, okay, are you smart enough to do your own research, look at the technical reports? I watched the Charles Whiteboard as my intro into Cardano, right? I knew from then on, not only is this project going to be a serious contender, if they implement half of these things, it's going to probably compete for like the top spot one day. So you have to make your own call. You have to, do your own research and kind of back your thesis with conviction. But to say that, you're still sleeping on this thing Cardano because there's no smart contracts that you can use yet. Like, I hear that a lot from the ETH bros, and I'm like, show me a dApp that I can use on ETH2 right now. Show me a dApp where I can connect my MetaMask, use a normal dApp and sign a transaction, literally, with my wallet. If you can show me that, like, I'll give you 100 ADA, whatever, right? And they can't show you that. And at the same time, they realize, okay, you go into Coinbase, there's ETH1, there's ETH2 in your wallet. It's just like, okay, what? So the market's forward-looking. The market's always forward-looking and seeing what's coming into the future and pricing that in as much as it can. It's probably priced in maybe 50% of what Cardano is actually working on and about to launch in the next 6 months. For Ethereum, it's probably priced in most of ETH2 at this point, even though it's so uncertain and we don't know when it'll get here. So it's like, at this point, all of these protocols are still trying to update, innovate themselves. We do not know which one's going to be the winner by any means. Like, they can call everything they want, non-Ethereum a ghost chain, but ETH2 is a ghost chain, in my opinion. Like, there's nothing on it. So it's just like, you got to, and when you look at the actual transaction volume that settles on Cardano, it's certainly not a ghost chain. There's many few blocks that I see these days that are just empty blocks that are just getting, put on the chain. It's all transactions happening. It's all NFT flow. It's all people moving their stake around. Like, there's very real, volume and economic, value.
Yeah, and this is without smart contracts or anything, anything
metadata.
major on the chain. So I touched on that actually in my last video, just looking at transactional volume on chain and how we are seeing it increase. And I expect to get up to, I was looking at a per epoch basis, which I expect us to be into the millions of transactions per epoch by the time we have Alonzo and everything like that. So we are definitely moving away from the ghost chain side of things.
Yes. Yeah, I will say the UTXO produces a lot of transactions too, just the way it works compared to the accounts model in Ethereum. So yeah, I know it sounds crazy to say that, but 1 million transactions per epoch sounds like pretty accurate figure for 3 months into Plutus or so. We'll see.
Yeah, we're at 180 kind of was the average of the last 180,000 of the last few epochs. So it's not that big of a jump for me anyway to look at, as we're seeing the increase now, even NFTs and stuff like that alone, and native assets starting to move and trade hands. All of that is going to start building up the numbers. I suppose one of the popular questions we're going to get is, when can people get Liqwid tokens? So I presume you guys you've minted your tokens or your native assets anyway. And the next question is, when can people get them in their hands? Because there was even Telegram groups, wasn't there, scams out there about?
Yeah, let's talk about it. So let's talk about that first, right? We don't have any official Telegram. There's none. So if you join a Telegram that's saying anything about a pre-sale for LQ tokens, it's a complete scam, right? We even put, a line on our website that says there is no pre-sale happening for LQ, right? And if you read any of our articles, our white paper, our frequently asked questions documents, right? We make it clear that we're doing a fair token launch, and the ability to access the token and provide liquidity on the protocol will happen at the same time for everyone. And there'll be plenty of announcements leading up to that time, right? When will that happen? At the same time Plutus launches on chain, right? We're not distributing this token before we actually have smart contracts and a product in market. The product is the distribution of the tokens. Anyone who's borrowing, anyone who's supplying on the Liqwid protocol, each block is earning some amount of LQ. So the ability to, do yield farming and introduce some early, ways to kind of yield LQ was a nice kind of idea to launch on the KEVM sidechain, and something we really explored, and in the month or so of February built the whole smart contract and wallet solution around. But the reality is, like, that would have been like a sort of hacky, early initial product release in many ways. It's not capital efficient to just have people locking their ADA in a contract just to yield some governance tokens. Like, there's nothing efficient really about it, but it's exactly what all the Ethereum DeFi teams do when you look at Binance Smart Chain and their yield farming. And it's successful for many of them. It bootstraps liquidity, right? It's like a real issue of how you do that from 0 to 1, right? For some of these DeFi protocols. And doing it efficiently means that you actually have to let early liquidity providers in to earn the token. We're saying now none of that is going to happen until Plutus goes live in production, right? There absolutely is no pre-sale. There's a fair token launch, meaning the same day as that Alonzo hard fork. Once we announce that the Liqwid protocol is live in production on Plutus, anyone can connect their data list, their Yoroi, their wallet essentially to the DApp, supply their ADA, supply any of the other tokens that are supported. If ERG is on, Cardano by then, it'll be supported, and actually earn the LQ token. And there's 2 ways to earn it, right? You can earn it from just, like I said, supplying or borrowing. There's a per block drip rate. So basically 0.5 LQ will drip across each of the markets, each block, depending on how much borrower interest is being paid. And the second is those Q tokens that you get when you supply to the Liqwid protocol. You can then, stake those essentially, lock them in a yield farming contract that's like a staking contract. Each epoch, it will release, a subset of the, LQ tokens onto those stakers. So those are the main 2 ways. We talked about it in depth. We wrote a Medium kind of yield farming, liquidity incentivization article. I can copy that and share that with you. All that information and data is still accurate and valid. The only thing that's really changed is that we're not doing yield farming on the KEVM. We're just going to launch it all at the same time on Plutus.
No, it's good to get that information out there, because it's like any project. We see scams popping up all the time, and people just need to know that there will be an official announcement from the Liqwid Twitter, from yourselves. I'll put out a video on it when we have official dates or officially how these things are going to work. So anything in the meantime, just report them. They're not real. So
not real at all.
I suppose we'll finish it up then, looking at Alonzo in general, the Alonzo rollout. What do you guys see? What's your opinions on that in general?
Yeah,
and then anything else you want to add?
Sure. Yeah, we're really excited. We're thrilled. We're definitely been hacking away at Plutus for the last couple of months, and there's a lot of power in the model that they've built, right? Like, essentially, if you can get a team of Haskellers who have a product vision in mind, you can build anything you want in Plutus and deploy it in Cardano in 3 to 4 months. Especially when some of these kind of more infrastructure things are easier and cleaner to work with, once some of these design patterns are sorted, it's going to be very simple for a seasoned hassler to just walk into Plutus and just start building things. So I think, to me, that's what's most exciting. It's like, wow, like, I've been in crypto since 2017 and seen this whole entire, up and down and then up again wave of Cardano, and seeing, like I said, I go back to this information arbitrage, like seeing the entire crypto ecosystem, like, not see the future value proposition in this, Cardano model, in this, more resource deterministic, just more efficient blockchain, essentially, more robust way to do smart contracts on the extended UTXO model, better way to do native assets with governance. When you look at it, the Babel fees is a whole new, basically turning, stake pool operators into mini Uniswaps. Like, there's so much value that you're going to get functionality wise that's just out of the box on Cardano. It was really a no-brainer for us when we were really thinking of what to build on. Even trying to explain that to some of the early investor like VCs who were talking to us, and trying to get them to realize that, hey guys, there's more out there than just this Ethereum model. I know it's where all the liquidity in the world lives right now, but when you look at the last few months, and I don't like to talk about the price of ADA, but let's just talk about the market cap. And the market cap is tied to the economic security of the protocol in many ways, because it's a 51% attack in a proof of stake network is tied to the, price of the token and how much it costs to acquire that much. So when you look at the fact that our real security is going up as the price of ADA, as the utility, you talk about transaction volume, as all those numbers go up, right? It's only a matter of time before this thing hits like that threshold. And then every single, kind of real institutional investor is saying, okay, now we need to either think about allocating, every single dev shop is thinking, okay, now we need to think about hiring our first Haskell dev to like hack at Plutus, and it becomes kind of this wave. You get on Stack Overflow, you get a whole dev ecosystem kind of going and really kind of engaged in Cardano, and it's already starting to happen. I'm seeing it like kind of bubble to the top right now, and it's actually just like really exciting because it's all in the lead up to Alonzo. It's like, to me, is when utility gets here. Like I love the NFTs, and I think NFTs are awesome, and that design space, again, so underexplored. So many things you can do when you talk about tying intellectual property to the NFT, tying the cash flow.
That's something I'm excited to see in the long term as well. On the NFT side is putting real world assets behind an NFT and tying the ownership of assets outside of just digital art and everything as well, tying it to other assets, or even there's certain advantages to owning it, certain access to areas and stuff like that. That's a whole space. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens there.
Alfonso will unlock, honestly, all of that, because Alfonso is saying, hey, you can tie a script and an oracle to this, NFT token that gives maybe the minter the ability to update it or to collect royalty payments on it when it, is traded or swapped. There's so many things you can build into in terms of what the logic, how this thing actually fully operates when deployed on chain. It's really exciting to see that that's only 3 to 4 months away, essentially, for Cardano. So yeah, we're definitely as heads down as we've ever been. We have, like I said, 2 more joining the team of 6, early April. So they're pretty much onboarding, and by the end of this week today, they'll probably be fully onboarded. And we're just going to keep going and try to work as closely with IOHK and those Plutus devs as we can. They've provided a lot of value. Shout out to Ben O'Hanlon. He's amazing at, just being a facilitator. For the community,
a lot that isn't seen outside of the SPO side or outside of dev side of things.
Yeah, he's an unsung hero, 100%. And yeah, just, keeping that tight feedback loop is what's really been key for us up to this point.
Yeah, we're just gone over the half an hour, so we'll probably try and sum it up there, and so it's easier for people to digest. Then anything else you want to add on it, or anything before we close it out?
Yeah, all good. Like you said, our official Twitter is where you can get all of the latest announcements. Anything coming from Telegram is definitely not from us at all, so please don't listen to it. It's all noise. But yeah, follow us on Twitter. We have official Medium, official Discord. You can join that and, chat with us and ask all your questions there if you like.
Yeah, we're also I'll get all them links added into the description of this video as well, just to make sure that people get the right ones. So thanks very much for coming on again. It was great for me to get an update. I'm sure lots of the community will have benefited from this as well, and maybe another month or two we'll touch base again and do another update when we're getting closer to having the product in the real world.
Sounds awesome. Thanks, Paul.
All right. Thanks very much, DC. We'll talk to you soon.